South of Midnight is the newest game by Compulsion Games, the developers behind Contrast and We Happy Few. As a big fan of We Happy Few, I was hoping for great things from South of Midnight. And while my hopes were not exactly met, there is still some fascinating real-world lore behind what we see in this game. In this video, I'll be giving an overview of the plot of South of Midnight before jumping into the folklore behind it. So go pour yourself a glass of sweet tea and then settle in to follow the strands of South of Midnight. We find Hazel in her room, waiting for her mother Lacey to get home from work. Hazel has been reminiscing while packing a box of belongings to evacuate with. Lacey arrives home while Hazel is packing, explaining that she is late because there was a leak in the roof at the shelter, and she had to drive people to Jolene's church for shelter from the hurricane. Hazel suggests that they go to her grandmother Bunny's house to ride it out. Lacey, though, refuses, saying that they will go to the church with everyone else, just like they always do. The two argue, and Lacey tells Hazel to just go check on their neighbors, Bo and Mrs. Pearl. Although Hazel is still frustrated with her mother, she does as she is told, leaving the house as her mother tells her that everything she does it for her. Outside, the storm is raging, and Hazel runs through it to get to Bo. He is hunkered down with his dogs having a hurricane party. He invites Hazel in for punch, but Hazel declines, saying that she still has to go check on Mrs. Pearl. Mrs. Pearl is doing okay as well and invites Hazel in for some food. Hazel goes inside and Mrs. Pearl asks her what is wrong. Hazel speaks about her frustration with her mother while playing with a strange, almost spider-like figure Mrs. Pearl keeps on her windowsill. She asks Mrs. Pearl about Bunny. Mrs. Pearl tells Hazel that her mother is doing what she thinks is best, but as she does, she sees over Hazel's shoulder that Hazel and Lacey's house has fallen from its posts. Hazel rushes outside towards her home, just as it starts to be carried away down the river. Hazel gives chase and manages to jump on the roof as her mother yells to her that it's not safe and to go back to shore. Hazel is knocked off balance as a car hits the side of the house. She falls into the river, but as soon as she hits the water, she finds herself transported back to shore. She is confused about what just happened but has no time to ponder it, again chasing after her house. She reaches a jetty just moments too late to be able to try jumping on the roof again. Hazel can't do anything more than watch the house drift away, with her mother still inside. Across the river, Hazel sees her grandmother's mansion and decides to go to her for help. The bridge has been knocked out by the hurricane, and Hazel has to carefully make her way across the parts which remain. As she does, though, she sees for a moment a large, monstrous creature further down the river, in the same direction her house went. Once across the bridge, Hazel makes her way down Main Street, calling out for help, but no one answers. The hurricane is in full force, knocking things down and sending vehicles careening across the streets. Fortunately, we can assume Hazel weighs more than a truck, as she is able to run through the hurricane unaffected by the wind. Cutting through the cemetery, Hazel passes by her father's mausoleum. Approaching the mansion, Hazel sees strands appearing in the air, rushing towards it. At the front door, Hazel is met by Bunny's servant Lily, who tries to turn her away. Bunny, though, hears the commotion and comes downstairs. Hazel explains to her that the house has been washed down the river, with her mother inside, and she asks for her grandmother's help. Bunny says that she will help, but in the morning, as rescues are suspended during hurricanes. Hazel says Bunny doesn't understand, and it isn't just about her mother, but that she is also seeing strands in the air. Bunny perks up at the mention of the strands and tells Lily to ready a guest room for Hazel. Hazel is overcome and she falls asleep, finding herself in a strange dreamscape with strands leading her forward while calling her name. They lead her towards a ghostly caravan pulled by a giant boar and a man named Rue, who asks what she is doing there before disappearing. Next, a ghostly version of Hazel's house and mother appear, but her mother can't see her. When this disappears as well, Hazel moves forward and sees her mother in a window recreating the scene on the river. Finally, she sees her mother floating in the air before being plucked away by a large creature. When this vision fades, Hazel awakens in Bunny's guest room. The door has been locked and Hazel pounds on it, but is scared by a sudden flash of a strange mass arising from the floor and going up the wall. It disappears in an instant, but the strands appear again as well, leading Hazel to the open balcony doors. Scaffolding along the outside of the building allows Hazel to make her way to Bunny's office. There she finds journal entries written by Bunny, which refer to Bunny being able to see the strands, but not being able to control them, and something else called stigma. Another journal entry is on the desk, and Bunny has written cryptically there about wanting to forgive someone, and wanting to believe that the end of a life does not have to be permanent. The office door is locked, but the strands lead Hazel to an odd statuette on the bookshelf, and when Hazel turns it, it opens a hidden passage to the attic. There, Hazel finds a chest with strand-coated hooks that she picks up. When she does, she sees more of the strange growths emerging from the floor and the walls. The attic window is open, and Hazel is able to make her way out onto the roof. She goes towards the edge of the roof, which collapses beneath her, and she falls to the ground. The entire yard is covered in the strange growth, and Hazel is drawn to one part in particular that the hooks react to. Hazel surmises that all of this is the stigma that Bunny wrote about. Hazel uses the hooks to unravel the stigma knot, and when she does, all the growths disappear, being replaced with flowers. Hazel leaves the mansion grounds while Bunny looks on, determined to find her mother on her own. She starts to follow the trail back down to the river, but finds the way blocked by impassable brambles. She has no choice but to take a detour through the forest. As she goes forward, she is passed by animals fleeing from something, and she finds an area with more of the stigma, and a creature created by it called a haint appears in front of her. Using the hooks, Hazel is able to defeat and unravel the haint, and the others that appear after it. She then again uses the hooks to clear the stigma, and flowers bloom in its place. As the flowers bloom, Hazel hears some mysterious music and singing. Following it, she is led to a well, and dropping down into the well, she finds herself in a large cave system. The music draws her through the cave to a spinning wheel, and she reaches out to take from it another weaver's tool, the distaff. As soon as she holds it, she sees ghosts. A woman named Mahalia is leading 3 slaves towards the river and to freedom. Hazel sees the ghosts as an opportunity to find her own way to the river, and so follows after them, clearing more stigma along the way. The ghosts lead her to the remains of a town, where Hazel finds notes written by Mahalia, learning that she was a weaver as well, called to serve by another storm in Prospero, just like Hazel. In an abandoned house, Hazel finds more weaver tools, spindles, which allow her to cast spells. Upon taking them, she sees the ghosts, climbing a table to escape the house. Hazel finds that she is able to use the spindles to make the ghost table solid, like snatching it out of the past to use it in the present. Hazel keeps following the ghosts, unraveling stigma as she finds it along the way. She eventually makes it into the swamp and finds her mother's work binder, seeing a vision of her mother. When the vision fades, she pushes on through the swamp, hearing a voice calling out. Hazel follows this voice and finds it belongs to a large catfish, who has found himself plucked from the swamp by a giant man tree who will not let him go. Hazel finds this whole talking fish thing a little bit too strange, and is going to walk away, but the fish says it knows about her mother. He will tell Hazel what he knows, if she helps him get loose first. Catfish explains that the world is made up with strands, and when something terrible or unnatural happens to a creature, the strands get knotted. Something has happened to the tree, and it has left its knots all over the place. Catfish tells Hazel that to start to solve this problem, she will need a bottle from the bottle tray. Hazel makes her way over to the bottle tree, but as she goes to take one, a man comes out of the house, accusing her of being a boo hag. The man, Rhubarb, says that he needs the bottles for the haints. He tells Hazel that some people say that if you scoop up those clumps into a bottle and put the bottle in a bottle tray, that you can cure the pain. Hazel says that she can help with this, and so Rhubarb lets her take one of the bottles. When she does, Hazel sees strands in the air, forming a vortex, pointing to the ground in the distance. She goes towards the vortex and finds the stigma at its center. She puts down the haints in the area and unravels the stigma knot. When she does, she sees an echo of the past, hearing the catfish talk about how the family had moved to the area due to Benji being bullied, and how Rhubarb blamed Benji for uprooting their life. Holding out the bottle, Hazel is able to bottle the pain attached to this memory. She repeats the process of finding the second knot and unraveling it, revealing an echo of the townspeople throwing rocks at Benji and rhubarb due to Benji's differences. Unraveling a third knot causes Hazel to see an echo of Benji having been caught in a bear trap, purposefully left out for him. Catfish says this was a sign to rhubarb that things were going to get worse, just like last time. Making it to the community building, Hazel finds the final knot. Unraveling it, she sees a memory of Rhubarb participating in a talent show, and then losing his temper and beating his brother with his violin bow. Catfish explains that Rhubarb was tired of tending to Benji's needs, instead of showcasing what he could do, and felt that he had moved enough. When the echo fades, Hazel bottles the pain and finds herself drawn into another realm. She hears Rue telling her that she should not be there, before seemingly summoning a fog creature. The bottle pulls her forwards towards something, and Hazel flees in that direction to escape the fog. She makes it to a bottle tree, and the fog creature is not able to penetrate the light which surrounds it. Holding the bottle out towards the tree, Hazel sees a glowing pattern, and is released back to the real world. When Hazel makes it back to the catfish, he tells her that she must use the pattern to fix the tangle in the tree. She will then also need to reweave Benji. Hazel unravels the knot in the base of the tree, and finds herself watching one final echo. Rhubarb having told Benji to go inside the hollow tree for a game, then nailing him up and leaving him there to die. The tree took pity on Benji and absorbed him. With the tangle unraveled, Catfish tells her to climb up the Benji tree. Hazel climbs on up and on her way finds a strange wound in the tree, where it looks like something has been dug out of him. Moving on, she makes it up to Benji's head with his corporation. There she finds the wound caused by Benji's pain. Breaking up this wound, she is able to reweave Benji. She asks Benji if he would now kindly release the catfish, which he does. Whooping, Catfish swims off, telling Hazel to meet him back at Rhubarb's dock. There, Hazel asks Catfish if she did enough for Benji, and Catfish tells her that weavers mend parts of the soul so ripped you had forgotten they were ever in one piece. He then offers to help Hazel find her mother, telling Hazel to climb up on his back. Hazel complies, and Catfish takes her to the flooded area where Hazel's house should have washed up. As they make it into the area, Catfish suddenly stops, looking towards an island in the distance, and telling Hazel that there is a giant alligator called Two-Toed Tom. Catfish has no desire to be gator food, and tells Hazel that she will need to get rid of Tom before he will take her any further. He tells Hazel that there is a church up the way with a bell, and that she should try ringing it. Some church folks had tried to dynamite Tom once, and as a result, he can't abide the ringing of bells. Catfish hopes that the sound of the church bell ringing will get Tom to leave the area. It looks like Catfish was right about Hazel's house drifting down to this area, as when Hazel approaches the church, she finds a picture from her house and sees another vision of her mother, talking about having to keep kids safe. Hazel makes it to the church and climbs up the bell tower. She pulls the bell cord to ring it, and when she does, Two-Toed Tom starts swimming towards the church, revealing that he was the island they had seen. Turns out that Two-Toed Tom really does hate bells, but instead of fleeing from it, he decides to make sure that no one can ever ring that bell again by destroying the church and chomping down the bell. Hazel flees on Catfish's back, and they head off towards the bend in the river while Tom is distracted. Catfish takes her as far as he can, but eventually has to drop her off, due to the amount of pig waste in the water that he is swimming through. After bidding Catfish farewell for now, Hazel starts to make her way through the flooded area. She finds some rubble from her house, and buried among it, her beloved stuffed toy Crouton. After Hazel hugs Crouton, it comes to life, with Hazel not being anywhere near as surprised as she should be by her childhood toy becoming a living being. Hazel thinks that Crouton can help her by scooching into small places that she can't, something which has not been an issue for her so far. Nearby, there is a burrow that Crouton is able to enter. There is a stigma knot inside which Crouton can unravel without the weaver tools. With the stigma unraveled, Hazel moves on through the flood, eventually coming across a stigma knot with haints around it, and after defeating the haints and unraveling the stigma, she sees another vision. She hears Catfish explaining that Two-Toed Tom was not always a giant alligator. He was once the poor, starved pet of old Farmer Swopes. In the echo, Hazel sees old Farmer Swopes arguing with his daughter Jolene, seemingly using Tom to scare her. Hazel collects the pain associated with this echo and sees Jolene's church in the distance. Heading to the church, Hazel finds Mrs. Pearl outside and takes her in. Jolene asks Hazel where her mother is and confirms that she had not seen Lacey since yesterday. Jolene also tells Hazel that something as big as her house would catch at the riverbend. She also mentions some friends of Lacey's who could have helped her, but Jolene won't elaborate on what she means by this. Hazel again resolves to find her mother on her own and leaves the church. Pressing on, Hazel sees Two-Toed Tom moving through the swamp just before finding another major source of stigma. Clearing it, she sees an echo of old Farmer Swope's going to Jolene's house with Two-Toed Tom, trying to force Jolene to come home. He had brought Tom's dinner bell with him and rang it repeatedly, making the starved gator go crazy. Jolene was scared, but still refused to return home. Collecting this pain, Hazel snaps back to reality and is able to enter Jolene's house, where she finds a note about some children who appear to be neglected and abused. The note says Jolene intends to reach out to the special branch of social services. Upstairs, another note from Jolene speaks of her forgiving her father, but having trouble forgiving herself for some unspecified sin. Continuing to follow the strands, Hazel finds herself at the pig farm, where one unlucky pig has found itself stranded on a tire. Hazel tries to pull the pig to safety, but its squealing attracts Two-Toed Tom, who swallows the pig and its tire down whole. Moving on, Hazel finds old Farmer Swope's house. The family portrait has Jolene's face scratched off, and a note on the table speaks of old Farmer Swope's being embarrassed of his daughter. There are many photographs and portraits of old Farmer Swope with Tom, though, which shows the farmer loved his gator in some way, despite treating him so poorly. Outside, Hazel unravels more stigma and sees another echo. Catfish speaks of Tom crying from hunger all the nights his supper was taken, going so far once to bite his own toes off just to have something to eat. In this echo, Jolene has tied her father up, and she rings Tom's dinner bell, prompting him to eat his owner. After collecting this pain, Hazel moves on and finds the final stigma on the farm. Once this too is unraveled, Hazel sees a final echo, Jolene visiting her father's grave, vowing to dedicate herself to good works, and having set Two-Toed Tom free. With this final pain collected, Hazel once again finds herself pursued by the same frog creature that had chased her in the forest. Making it to another bottle tree, Hazel again collects a pattern from the tree and finds herself back in the real world. She then heads towards the pig factory, which is in the direction of the river bend where she hopes her home will have been caught up. Inside the factory, though, she finds a nightmare. With the hurricane coming, the owner of the factory decided that compared to the insurance payout, it would have been more expensive to move the pigs and save them from the hurricane. Instead, the owner ordered the factory doors sealed to protect the equipment, dooming the pigs inside. These pigs didn't die easy, appearing to have climbed atop one another in their attempts to avoid the floodwaters. Hazel has to squeeze through the mountains of pigs' bodies to make it to the tangle. When she unravels the tangle, she sees the echo of what happened to Tom after Jolene set him free. He discovered the pig farm and started eating and never stopped, growing into the gigantic alligator he is today. Making it out the other side of the factory, Hazel finally finds her house, washed up on the bend just as Jolene and Catfish had thought. As she is approaching it, however, Two-Toed Tom emerges from the water and tears through it, swallowing much of the house. Hazel chases after Tom, who turns to attack her. As they fight, Tom coughs up the church bell, and Hazel uses it against him, ringing it repeatedly to temporarily incapacitate him. Each time Tom is incapacitated, Hazel is able to hack away at the wound on his tongue. Of course, attacking Tom's tongue means Hazel is standing in his mouth, and eventually the gator just snaps her up and swallows her down. Inside Tom's stomach, Hazel finds the tire pig still alive, and far more lucky than it first appeared. She also finds another wound inside Tom's stomach and hacks away at it to heal Tom's pain. With Tom healed, he spits out Hazel, the tire pig, and Hazel's house. Hazel goes into her house, finding it covered in red yarn. Her mother, however, is nowhere to be seen. Hazel is distraught and sits outside by the water, with the tire pig coming over to comfort her. Catfish pops out of the water, scaring the poor sweet tire pig away. Catfish says that the red yarn in the house means Hugging Molly had been there. Hazel has heard the stories of Hugging Molly, the creature who steals children away and all she leaves behind is red yarn. Hazel questions why Hugging Molly would have taken her mother, though. and Catfish supposes that Hazel's mother might have gotten in her way too many times when she was trying to snatch children. Catfish might know where Hazel can start looking for Molly, and so Hazel jumps on his back again, the two swimming away while Tired Pig watches on. Catfish is taking Hazel near to a weekend home owned by Bunny, where Hazel might be able to find some information about hogging Molly. He drops her off at the dock, and she starts to make her way through the forest towards the house, finding that there is more stigma in the forest and clearing it as she goes. Eventually, she makes it to the house, but finds that the front door is blocked by stigma. She goes around the grounds of the home, unraveling stigma knots, and sees 3 echoes of the past. First, a memory of Bunny with her children, Trey and his younger sister Cherie. Both children were playing near their mother, but when Cherie fell from a dollhouse she was climbing on, Bunny became angry at Trey for not watching his sister. The second echo shows Trey getting in trouble for letting his sister get her dress dirty. The third is of Cherie's death. She had gotten her dress dirty again, and not wanting to get in trouble, Trey tried to clean her. Unfortunately, he was trying to clean her off in the river and lost his grip, causing Cherie to drown. When the pain from this third echo is bottled, the fog creature reappears to chase Hazel again, and she flees to a nearby bottle tree, obtaining another pattern which would let her unravel the stigma tangle in the area. But first, with the stigma blocking the door clear, Hazel goes inside to look for information on hogging Molly. The first piece of information Hazel comes across, though, is not about hogging Molly, but another creature called a rougarou. This information is contained in a letter from a professor to Bunny, and says that rougarou are born from the bodies of those who experienced immense tragedy, and that anyone can become a rougarou, a shapeshifter that can take the forms of many different animals, including wolves, lions, bears, and owls. Going upstairs, Hazel finds Bunny's room, and within it her journal. Bunny wrote about her knowledge of weavers, and her belief that everyone should be able to access weaver powers. In Bunny's room, Hazel also finds another hidden door, leading to a secret room. Inside, Hazel finds a collection of missing persons posters for children, including her father. Also in this room is a piece of the Benji tree, a large feather, and a photograph of her mother's ex-boyfriend Laurent, along with research about the weaver's distaff and hogging Molly. As Hazel searches the room further, Bunny walks in. Hazel apologizes for being in Bunny's house and explains that hugging Molly took Lacey. Bunny figures out that Hazel is a weaver. Hazel asks if Bunny is a weaver too, but Bunny doesn't answer, instead saying that they will have tea after Hazel changes clothes. With Hazel dressed in far less practical clothing, the two sit outside to drink sweet tea. Bunny confirms that Trey was taken by hugging Molly when he was a child, but says he was taken as bait, with hugging Molly actually wanting Bunny. Bunny then claims to be a weaver, and tells Hazel that hugging Molly can't abide weavers, as weavers mend the chaos that her kind likes to create. She implies that hugging Molly took Lacey to lure Hazel. She also tells Hazel that she doesn't know where hugging Molly lives, but she suspects that Laurent does. She tells Hazel that the garden gate will take Hazel to Laurent's place. Hazel leaves through the garden gate and heads off towards Laurent. On the way, she comes across Catfish again, talking to a fox friend. Hazel tells Catfish that Bunny showed up at the house, but that she is going to help Hazel find hugging Molly. Catfish is unhappy to hear that Hazel is working with Bunny and refuses to give her a lift, instead telling Hazel that she should take the path and stop by the tree which Bunny visits every year. Hazel makes her way up to the tree, hearing along the way the sound of a baby crying. She comes across a tangle and unravels it, seeing an echo of Bunny placing Cherie's body in a tree. She stole the heart of the Benji tree to steal its magic, keeping Cherie's soul with her body. Unraveling the tangle set Cherie's soul free, allowing her to finally pass on. Leaving the Cherie tree behind her, Hazel starts to make her way to Laurent's bar. On her travels, though, Hazel does find a number of notes about Laurent. These notes suggesting that there's something strange about him, that he doesn't age as quickly as other people. Hazel also finds another artifact from her house, a photo that she took of her mother and Laurent, and she sees her mother talking about how Laurent seems scared of himself. Hazel eventually makes it to Laurent's bar, the Juke Joint. Laurent is inside and Hazel asks him about hugging Molly, though he denies knowing anything about her. Laurent and Hazel argue, with Hazel berating Laurent for the way he ended things with Lacey, and Laurent starts to lose control of himself. He tells Hazel that he isn't safe, before turning into a giant owl creature, the Rougarou. Seeing this, Hazel thinks that maybe she can reweave him. She heads towards the old company houses from when the sawmill was in operation, thinking that if she can fill her bottle with Laurent's pain, she can reweave him. Inside one of the houses, she finds a letter from the company to Laurent's father, explaining that they will not agree to swap company scripts for cash to help pay his wife's medical bills. Company scripts were an old form of pay used by some companies, which could only be used in stores owned by those companies. In America, the use of scripts was made illegal in 1938. Too late, though, to save Laurent's mother. Hazel starts to find the stigma born of Laurent's pain. The first echo shows the sawmill owner with his fancy car, while Laurent's father toiled away. Catfish commenting that the owner wouldn't even miss the money that would have saved Laurent's mother. The second shows Laurent fishing, with Catfish saying that Laurent's father barely got out of bed most days, and it had fallen to the very young Laurent to try to feed them both. The third shows Laurent and his father at his mother's grave, with Catfish contemplating how with a doctor Laurent's mother might have lived, but you can't pay a doctor in company scripts. The final shows Laurent having run into the forest on his mother's birthday, crying out like a wounded owl, consumed by his pain. With the pain from this final echo bottled, the fog creature appears once more, again pursuing Hazel while she flees to a bottle tree. After gaining the pattern from the tree, Hazel is back in the real world and sees Laurent land atop the old sawmill. Catfish also comes swimming up, surprised to see a Rougarou. Hazel tells him that this is Laurent, to which Catfish tells her it would be best to leave him and to find Hugging Molly another way. Hazel protests though, saying that she needs to reweave him, just like she did for Benji and Tom. Pursuing Laurent, Hazel makes her way into the sawmill, snatching an old water wheel out of the past to activate the mill, cutting through a log blocking her way. Scaling the sawmill, Hazel finds a tangle. When she unravels it, she sees an echo of Laurent as a child, having come to the sawmill to tell off the owner. The owner, though, slaps Laurent, just as Laurent's father comes in. Laurent's father went to take a swing at the owner for hitting his kid, but the owner shoots him dead. Laurent's tiny body couldn't contain his anguish. He grew larger, feathers bursting from his skin to become the owl for the first time. The owner fled in his fancy car, with Laurent soaring after him, hunting him down for what he had done. With the tangle cleared, Hazel is able to pass through the owner's office and continue scaling the sawmill. Finally making it to the top, Hazel finds Laurent and tries to talk to him, but he is too far gone in his rage. Hazel has to fight him, cutting away at the wound on his chest with her hooks. Finally, she is able to use the pattern on him, and he transforms back into his human form. Hazel explains about Hugging Molly taking Lacey, and asks if Laurent can take her to Hugging Molly's lair. Laurent tells Hazel that he will take her as far as he can, but that he has never managed to make it to her lair. Laurent transforms back into the owl, this time under his own free will. Hazel then climbs on his back and they soar towards the lair. Laurent leaves Hazel on a path in the mountains. She finds that there are wind tunnels between the mountains that she can use to make her way towards Hugging Molly's lair. On her way, she finds notes left by a rescue squad who were looking for a missing child. All that was found when the child went missing was a shoe and some red yarn. A further note reveals that one of the squad fell while they were crossing a ravine, but the next morning when they awoke, the injured man's leg was wrapped in red yarn and almost completely healed. A final note says that the search had been called off, that the squad had found a note written in a child's handwriting, saying that they are safe and fixed and don't want to go home. Along with the search and rescue squad notes, Hazel also finds a first aid kit from her home. She sees her mother talking about the kid she helps needing more than a band-aid, and Jolene knowing someone outside the system who might be able to help. Making her way through a cavern, Hazel emerges by an old ghost town. She finds an old man there who introduces himself as Itchy, saying that he was the only schoolboy that Hugging Molly never took. Going into the town, Hazel immediately finds a house covered in red yarn. Inside, she finds 2 notes written by a young girl named Jane, who is trying to look after her younger siblings while her parents work. There are 4 stigma knots around the town, which Hazel unravels. The first shows an echo of Itchy seeing his friends change, talking about Miss Molly and coming back from her house with toys, treats, and clothes that weren't hand-me-downs. Hazel assumes that this was Molly luring the children in. The second echo shows Itchy being beaten by his father, and Catfish saying that every adult in the holler treated children the same. The third shows Itchy crying over his father's body, which is wrapped in red yarn. Everyone had said it was an accident, but the morning prior, Itchy had gone to Molly's home and sat by the fire, talking about what his father was like. And Itchy believes Molly killed his father as a result. The final knot is at the church. There, the memory is of Itchy blaming himself for his father's death and seeking absolution. Taking the pain from this echo causes the fog creature to appear once more. And just like the times before, Hazel makes a mad dash to the bottle tree to escape the creature. In the real world, Hazel sees Itchy watching her through a window. Hazel asks Itchy why Hugging Molly never took him, and he tells her that his school friends had wanted to be taken, that he could have chosen the same, but he was not brave enough. Thinking she understands what Molly has done, Hazel makes the trek up to Molly's house. She finds the area's tangle just in front of the house, and clearing it, she sees some of the townsfolk, spurred on by Itchy's tales, going up to the house to confront Molly, pitchfork and axes in hand. They found Molly, not some old recluse, but a monstrous creature. Molly left, but not forever, returning to the holler to take the children, except for Itchy, who had caused her to be driven away. Hazel's take on all of this is that Molly destroys families. Let it never be said our protagonist is good at taking hints. Inside Molly's house, Hazel finds another note from Jane, this one addressed to Molly, asking her for food for the babies, and for herself if there is any extra. She also finds a letter from Itchy to Molly, asking why she took the others but not him. Upstairs, there is a transfer recommendation for a child, written by Lacey. The upstairs door blows open, and Hazel hears a noise coming from the mountain. She follows the strands along a wind tunnel and makes her way over to the mountain. She soon finds a cave with red yarn, and going inside, finds a strange puppet show depicting her house being washed away and her mother falling into the water, struggling to pull herself to land before her limp body is plucked up by Hugging Molly. Hazel uses her weaver powers to destroy the set, and the real Hugging Molly appears. Hazel demands that her mother be returned, but Hugging Molly dashes off. Hazel pursues her, finding an immense cave system with houses inside full of children's beds. On one of the beds is a child's note about a woman made of lace. Nearby, Hazel finds one of her own old toys, which she had donated, along with a mural of Lacey. Following the strands, Hazel uses the houses to climb up to another cavern full of strange, massive books and specimens. Eventually, she finds a chamber where her mother hangs cocooned in red yarn. Hugging Molly appears, and Hazel immediately attacks her. The two fight, with Hazel throwing bottles containing a red liquid at Molly to incapacitate her, then hacking away at her wound. Hazel eventually does so much damage to Molly that she flees, leaving behind half a heart locket. Hazel picks it up and sees a vision of her mother, remembering what happened to her in the flood. She was in the dark, her lungs burning, full of water and silt, her body breaking in 100 places. Then she saw red with the sunrise, and Molly doing what she had always done, healing her. This Lacey holds out the other half of the locket, and when they combine, Hazel flashes out of the vision. A small, strange child approaches her, saying that Hazel has hurt Molly, and that the Lacey woman would be mad. Hazel finally realizes that her mother was bringing children who the system failed to Molly, so that Molly could rescue them. As the child runs off, Hazel sees Molly, peering at her over a ledge. When Molly sees that Hazel noticed her, she runs off again, and Hazel chases after her, begging her to come back. She follows Molly, finding her lying injured on the top of the mountain. Bunny is there, cutting into Molly. Hazel tries to stop her, but is unable to stop Bunny from cutting Molly's heart out. Bunny says that she is going to use Molly's heart to bring Cherie back, and she pushes Hazel off the cliff. Hazel plummeted through the air, falling into the water below and passing out. She finds herself in the dreamscape, where she sees a vision of her mother in the cocoon, before seeing her being led away by Rue. Rue then appears alone before Hazel, and tells her that he and her mother will be waiting for her at Kushma's cabaret. He tosses a large coin into the air. Rue disappears and Hazel wakes up on the shore. Rue disappears and Hazel wakes up in the swamp, being guarded by Crouton. Catfish appears in the water, pointing out that the large coin has made its way into the real world, lying beside Hazel. Catfish warns Hazel that Rue is the right-hand man of Kushma, the king of dreams and nightmares. The story goes that Kushma feeds on dreamers who have received mementos from Rue. Hazel has lost some of her weaver tools in the fall, and she intends to recover them and then go after Rue and her mother. Following the strands deeper into the swamp, Hazel sees the ghost woman Mahalia with a small child. Catfish appears and tells Hazel that Mahalia had a settlement nearby. Hazel thinks that Mahalia is trying to tell her something and decides to follow her. Along the way, and with Crouton's help, Hazel is able to recover her spindles. Just ahead of the second spindle, Hazel sees Mahalia standing by an unlit bonfire, next to some fireflies. Hazel thinks Mahalia is telling her the bonfire is her way out of here. Hazel collects the fireflies and goes searching for more. While searching, she comes across a note written by Mahalia about a little swamp boy she found. When Hazel has enough fireflies, she takes them to the bonfire, and when they lend their light to the bonfire, a large creature emerges from the swamp. It appears as a giant swamp baby, and it likes Crouton. Initially, Hazel says that she doesn't have time to play, but after seeing a vision of Mahalia, she decides that she has time for one game. The creature, who Hazel calls Honey, is overjoyed and goes to hide while Hazel counts to 5. They play 3 rounds of hide and seek before Hazel asks Honey if he knows a way out of there. He indicates which way Hazel should go, and she finds a cave where Honey had been living. On the wall of the cave, she sees a note from Mahalia, lamenting the loss of this child to the old pain which haunts the swamp. Hazel rests by the fire in the cave while Honey takes a nap. A scream in the distance wakes Honey and he runs off. Outside the cave, Honey is looking in the direction of another creature, who takes off into the swamp. Another note is there from Mahalia, which talks of Honey growing as big as a house, and of hunters coming to burn their settlement to the ground. Mahalia had tried to help Honey with her weaver powers, but he wailed in pain and ran from her. With Honey's help, Hazel makes it to another part of the swamp with an old shipwreck. It is full of haints, which she clears out. She finds a stigma knot there with a memory attached, and unraveling it, sees an echo of a woman, Ayatunde, attempting to escape the boat with her baby. She had heard about Mahalia's settlement and wanted a better future for her son. She jumped from the ship as the captain ran to stop her. Hazel follows the strands again, leaving the ship for now and finding Honey. Just as the other creature, Altamahaha, rises from the swamp, scaring Honey away and flinging mud, Hazel flees from these projectiles. Hazel comes across another knot in the swamp, and unraveling it sees a vision of the captain, searching for Ayatonde. Catfish says that after Ayatonde made it to shore, she stumbled in the darkness, fighting back the urge to cry out, knowing if she was caught, no one would save her baby. Hazel realizes that it is Ayatonde who is the other creature in the swamp. The next knot reveals an echo of Ayatonde desperately searching for her lost child. The strands then lead Hazel back to the shipwreck. Inside she finds a curious note about a false stitcher who tried to steal Mahalia's powers to bend the grand tapestry to their will. Hazel reactivates the ancient elevator in the shipwreck, which apparently is still functioning and still has power. It takes her up to the bridge where the captain's log tells of whaling, and of the ship losing its deckhands and parlor girls. The captain vows to die with the ship, rather than abandon her to the riverbed. Hazel finds the final knot up on deck, and unravels it to see the echo of the captain running the ship aground in a panic caused by the whaling. Collecting this bit of pain summons the fog creature and starts another pursuit, with Hazel again making it to a bottle tree. Back in the real world, Hazel sees Honey walking through the swamp towards Altamahaha, who Hazel now knows is Ayatonde. Hazel runs towards the creature and finds the tangle, using the pattern to unravel it and revealing the echo of Ayatonde transforming into Altamahaha and tearing the ship apart. When the vision fades, Hazel follows Honey towards Altamahaha, with Hazel worrying that she might not recognize him, but she does. Embracing, the two are consumed by a white light and emerge as the ghosts of the woman and child they once were, before disappearing. Hazel then sees Mahalia in the distance and runs towards her as she disappears, finding another note that Mahalia left for her as her successor. Hazel also finds Mahalia's lantern, and when she touches it, Catfish appears. Hazel asks if the lantern summoned him, which he denies. It seems it did summon someone, though, Shaking Bones, a ferryman who takes desperate people to places unknown. Catfish warns Hazel against letting the ferryman take her to Kushma's realm, but she is determined to see this through. When Shaking Bones pulls up to the dock, Hazel offers him the coin Rue gave her. He accepts the coin and ferries her away, with Hazel promising Catfish that she will be back. Shaking Bones drops Hazel off on a foggy shore. She asks him which way she should go, but he is already rowing away, singing about following the river and finding the town on the tapestry. Moving away from the shore, Hazel comes across a crossroads, and sure enough, one of the signs points to the town on the tapestry. Hazel follows the path towards the town on the tapestry, but finds herself right back at the crossroads, this time with the crossroads signpost having been knocked down. She writes the signpost and puts it back in its place before following the directions again to the town on the tapestry. She finds herself back at the crossroads once again, but this time things are different, and Rue's caravan has appeared. Hazel enters the caravan, finding it larger on the inside, with countless artifacts, memory objects belonging to lost souls. Among them, Hazel finds the box of items she had packed before the hurricane, and in it, she hears her phone ringing. She answers the phone and hears her mother's voice. Hazel asks her mother if she is okay, but Rue answers instead, telling her her mother is fine and fully healed, and that Hazel just needs to meet him at Kushma's cabaret to hear his proposition. He also directs her to conjure up some different clothes, something more her. A door then opens in the caravan. Exiting out onto the town on the tapestry, Hazel makes her way into the impossible town, finding there are haints even here. After clearing the first bit of stigma she comes across, Hazel soon finds a note from someone who has forgotten who they are, and even what they look like, and she wonders if this town makes you forget. Moving on, Hazel finds some of the residents of the town, seeing them all locked in the same cycle, repeating the same actions over and over again. Moving on from the residences, Hazel sees a cabaret in the distance. She thinks that she can use the clock tower to get to it. The entry to the clock tower is blocked by the stigma, but Hazel is soon able to clear it away. Making it inside, Hazel reactivates the clock tower and uses the gears to ascend the tower to the top. There she needs to clear more stigma, and is then able to exit the top of the clock tower and use the wind tunnel to make it to the cabaret. Rue appears and pulls Hazel up onto the stage with him, forcing her to dance with him and put on a performance for their ghostly audience. When the dance number is done, Rue offers Hazel a key to her mother's door, saying that in return, he will ask for a favor later. Hazel accepts the key, but doesn't notice that the door she opens has her name on it, not her mother's. Going through the door, Hazel finds herself seemingly back in time, to the night of the hurricane. Things played out similarly to how they did the first time. Lacey hasn't come home yet, so Hazel is going to pack. Before she starts to pack Lacey's things, Lacey comes in the door. Hazel tells her they need to go, but Lacey again asks her to go check on Bo and Mrs. Pearl. Hazel argues, but Lacey insists, so Hazel tells her she will, telling her mother to pack quick and then not to leave the car. Outside, Hazel goes to clear the road, thinking that the neighbors will be all right. If Hazel was to check on them, though, she would not receive an answer at either door. Hazel clears the fallen branches off the road and goes to the car, calling for her mother. But again, the floodwaters rise. The house is swept off its post down the river with Lacey inside. Hazel falls to the ground in despair before realizing that this isn't real and her mother isn't actually here. The illusion shattered, Rue appears, telling Hazel that she is something else. Few willingly enter his town, and none break through his illusion. Rue tells Hazel that he likes her, but she'll never be fast enough to defeat Kushma. Hazel asks him if the rumors of Rue finding dreamers for Kushma are real, and Rue says that Kushma needs powerful nightmares to sustain its magic, and Rue finds the most powerful ones. He also tells her that he had been hunting a creature killer, someone powerful enough to tame Kushma's hunger, and that Lacey is really here somewhere, locked in a loop of despair. As they talk, darkness sets in and Rue says Kushma has found her. He then leaves her to fend off the haints which appeared. When the stigma is cleared, Hazel gets her first proper look at the fake neighborhood Rue had created for her. The entire thing is a wooden set. Exiting the set, Hazel finds herself back in the town on the tapestry, being pursued by Kushma's hunger. She flees again and escapes into someone else's nightmare set, though there are a couple of signs targeted at Hazel, along with a note. She finds another exit, but outside, Kushma's hunger is waiting. Hazel runs again until she finds another open set, with more targeted signs, and a note suggesting Lacey has been stuck in her loop hundreds of times already, waiting for Hazel. Exiting the set, Hazel flees from Kushma's hunger one more time, finally making it to Lacey's set, where Lacey is reliving the flood and seeing Hazel attempting the jump onto the house and missing. As Lacey sobs, Kushma appears, causing stigma to encircle the area. Kushma attacks Hazel and summons Haints to assist him. Killing the Haints hurts Kushma, and when she has defeated enough of them, Lacey is released from her loop. After a brief reunion, Hazel gives Lacey the bottle from the bottle tray, telling her to hold it steady. Kushma reappears, attacking once more before summoning more Haints. When the last of Kushma's Haints are defeated, the bottle is filled, and the bottle tray lights up. Hazel yells for Lacey to get to the bottle tray, but Lacey knows she won't be fast enough. She passes the bottle to Hazel to take it the rest of the way. Returning the bottle to the bottle tray, Hazel finds herself back in Rue's caravan. He tells her that Lacey is now safe back in Prospero, and he will send Hazel back as well. But first, he wants that favor Hazel agreed to. The favor is a simple one. Just hand a hairbrush to Bunny. Rue confirms that Bunny is in fact a false stitcher. Not chosen to be a weaver, Bunny instead uses a dark magic, killing creatures and tearing through the grand tapestry, leaving a trail of corruption behind her. Hazel asks what the hairbrush will do, and Rue explains that it is a one-way ticket to Kushma. Hazel has contained his hunger for now, but he will be back. Hazel agrees to give Bunny the brush in return for being sent home. Rue is good to his word and returns her to Prospero, in the cemetery where she finds her mother by her father's mausoleum. Hazel tells Lacey that there's one more thing she needs to do. Lacey does not want her to go to Bunny's, but Hazel says she has to make things right. Going up to the mansion, Hazel sees all the stigma which has been flowing from Bunny. Bunny is inside by the fire, and she is surprised to see Hazel. On the floor in front of Bunny is Molly's heart. Molly's heart was unable to bring Cherie back, and Hazel tells Bunny, "You can't bring back the dead." Bunny accuses Hazel of doing something which caused the magic not to work, and Hazel told her she helped Cherie. Hazel tells Bunny that she needs to make up for what she has done. She tells Bunny about the town on the tapestry, and that she can see Cherie again. She places the brush down and Bunny picks it up, saying she would do anything to brush Cherie's hair again. With that, Rue steps out of the shadows behind Bunny and tells her she can. Bunny recognizes Rue and knows that it would not really be Cherie, but Rue promises her that she will never be able to tell the difference. He offers his arm to Bunny and she takes it, allowing him to lead her away. Before they go, Rue tells Hazel that there is a fine line between mercy and justice, and that Hazel has chosen a hard road for herself. As Rue and Bunny disappear, the mansion starts to collapse around Hazel, and she flees into the front yard, where her mother is driving up. Hazel tells Lacey that she has a lot to tell her. Sometime later, Hazel will read her story to Benji and Crouton, while Catfish listens on. With her story ended, Hazel tells Benji and Catfish that she needs to get going, to meet her mother and Laurent for dinner. With this, Hazel's story comes to an end, but her story is based on the stories of the many creatures she met along the way. Let's talk about them. The most common enemy in South of Midnight is the Haints. In the world of the game, the Haints are creatures born of the stigma created by intense suffering. In folklore, Haints are generally considered to be malevolent spirits, the word Haint being derived from the word haunt. Stories of Haints came to America with the Gola people of West and Central Africa. These stories are as varied as the ghost stories of other cultures, with many saying that these spirits are those that were trapped between life and death and became twisted. In some stories, the Boohag is a type of Haint, a vampire-like spirit that slips into homes at night and steals energy from sleeping people. There is a shade of paint called Haint Blue, which is believed to repel Haints or confuse them, with people painting the ceiling of their porch blue in the hope that Haints would mistake it for the sky and bypass their home. The Gola people would create bottle trees to trap haints, placing bottles dyed blue on the ends of branches. It is believed that haints are drawn to the bottle and are able to get into them, but not able to get back out. Two-Toed Tom is an alligator who has been the subject of a number of sightings since as early as 1922. It is said that he was 14 foot long and was responsible for the disappearance of men, women, and livestock, all of whom he would consume. Many have tried to put him down, with one hunter succeeding in catching him in a trap, which claimed all but 2 of his toes on 1 foot. Like in South of Midnight, there was also an attempt to put an end to Two-Toed Tom by using dynamite. But, just like in the game, this was ineffective. Over time, the two-toed footprint became a sure sign that Tom was around. He has been seen in the swamps across Alabama and Florida, with sightings being reported up to the 1980s. In 1987, the Two-Toed Tom Festival was born. It takes place each year in Esto, Florida, and celebrates the legendary gator. A link to the festival Facebook page will be in the description box below. The rougarou is a creature of Cajun folklore, a monster with the head of a wolf and the body of a man. It was born from the legends of the loup-garou, the French version of a werewolf. In America, there were a number of different versions of the rougarou. Some say the rougarou roams the swamps of Louisiana, hunting for naughty children to take away. Some say that the rougarou state is the result of a curse placed on them by a voodoo priestess, and which can be passed on to others. All versions, though, tie the rougarou to werewolves. The were-owl element is unique to Compulsion Games, who have called it a reimagining of what the rougarou is. Yeah, mistakes were made. Another creature with which Compulsion Games took some artistic license is Honey. In South of Midnight, Honey is a young child who is saved by the swamp after being separated from his mother. The swamp changed Honey dramatically, giving him the appearance of a giant swamp child. The real version of the Honey Island swamp monster is a little less wholesome. This creature is similar to Bigfoot, in that there have been many supposed sightings of a large creature in Louisiana's Honey Island swamp, along with grainy footage and supposed footprints, but nothing which has been verified. There are stories about a traveling circus passing through the area by a train which crashed, causing some chimpanzees to escape. Some claim that the Honey Island swamp creature descended from these chimpanzees, though other people claim to have seen a more reptilian creature lurking in the swamp. In South of Midnight, Honey's mother turns into a creature called Altamahaha in the grief and rage of losing her child. The Altamahaha of folklore, though, is more similar to the Loch Ness Monster, except that it is said to live around the Altamaha River in Georgia. In fact, the settlers from the nearby town Darien, who first started spreading the stories of Altamahaha, came from Scotland, in the area around Loch Ness. Sightings of Altamahaha have continued to the present day, though there is little proof that there is any supernatural creature stalking the waterways. One of these sightings has been filmed and uploaded to YouTube, and I will link this video in the description box below. Check it out and let me know what you think. The legend of Hugging Molly was born in Abbeville, Alabama. Parents would warn their children to be home by curfew, for if they are outside in the dark, they may find themselves in the embrace of a 7-foot-tall woman in a dark cloak. Hugging Molly doesn't harm anyone though, just scares them by hugging them and screaming in their ear. No one knows why Hugging Molly hugs children, though some claim that she is the ghost of a woman who lost her only child. One thing is for sure though, few children miss their curfew in Abbeville. Shaking Bones was a passenger on Belle of Prospero, a musician by the name of Waylon James, who performed with a Big Brass Bones orchestra. Waylon James lost his life when Belle of Prospero ran aground and was destroyed by Altamahaha. This character was based on the real musician Robert Johnson, who was said to have sold his soul to the devil of the crossroads in return for his mastery of the guitar. Like Honey and Ayatunde, Shaking Bones was changed by the swamp into a creature much like Charon, the ancient Greek ferryman, who would ferry the souls of the dead across the rivers Acheron and Styx to the afterlife. Just like Shaking Bones, Karen would accept coins in exchange for passage. As for the Devil of the Crossroads, in South of Midnight, this role is played by Rue, who will seemingly give people exactly what they ask for, but in doing so, trap them in that moment forever. Those people are the lucky ones though, for there are others who Rue traps in nightmares instead, all in service of his master, Kushma. While Rue is only loosely connected to the tales of the Devil of the Crossroads, Kushma is a creature of folklore. However, in the folklore, a Kushma is not the king of dreams and nightmares. Instead, a Kushma is typically depicted as a female, and as a spirit who holds people down while they are having nightmares. The tales of the Kushma appear to have their origins in sleep paralysis, as a way for people to explain what was happening, before this condition was understood. Aside from including the creatures, the world of South of Midnight acknowledges the history of the South. In South of Midnight, we see a weaver, Mahalia, leading escaping slaves to freedom through the abysmal swamp. While neither Mahalia nor the abysmal swamp are real, many slaves did find freedom in escaping through the swamp, where searching for them was difficult and unpleasant. Spanning southeastern Virginia and northeast North Carolina is an expansive area which was called the Great Dismal Swamp. It became home to communities of escaped and freed slaves. In the swamp, they lived in relative peace, trading with nearby white communities and finding businesses who would overlook the background of their employees. The Great Dismal Swamp was also a passage for slaves who wanted a relatively safer passage north. The ghosts we see, powers of the Weaver aside, do represent the passage a lot of people took on their way to freedom. People like Mahalia would lead escaping slaves through the swamps and the wilderness, with perhaps the most famous of these people being a woman named Harriet Tubman, who, after escaping slavery herself, repeatedly returned to the South to rescue other slaves and lead them to freedom in the North. The folklore and history behind South of Midnight is fascinating, and in my opinion, is the best part of this game. But let me know what you think. Which of these creatures was your favourite? And why was it Two-Toed Tom?